Hello, this is Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, RCAF USA, the Cattle Association, has long considered its sister industry, the U.S. sheep industry, the canary in the coal mine. This is because among all the livestock industries, the sheep industry is most similar to the cattle industry. Sheep and cattle are similar biologically, as they are both ruminants, and the production steps and marketing structures of the sheep industry are comparable to that of the cattle industry. The commercial sheep industry in the United States, however, has been devastated. And the sheep industry unequivocally answered the question, can imports destroy an entire American livestock sector? And the unequivocal answer is, yes, they did. And now, just last week, 12 Western state senators and representatives sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice urging it to investigate the proposed sale of the nation's second largest lamb processing plant, Mountain States Rosen, to the world's largest beef packer, the Brazilian packer JBS. The congressional letter states that JBS intends to cease slaughtering lambs in the Greeley, Colorado facility, which the letter states could result in 15 to 20% of U.S. lambs not having timely access to a market. This, the senators and representatives stated, could force family-owned sheep ranches in the western states out of business. Now, RCAF USA issued a news release last week supporting the congressional call for an investigation and further called on the Department of Justice to block the sale. So after COVID-19, it became crystal clear that the highly concentrated livestock processing facilities lacked resiliency and redundancy, placing U.S. consumers in the unprecedented position of not being able to buy the food they needed for their families. Why in the world would America keep traveling down the same path? When something is as broken as our livestock markets, they must be fixed. Decisive reforms must be implemented. But this does not appear to be happening. And instead, we appear to be digging an even bigger hole. In addition to the obvious problem of eliminating processing facilities for the U.S. sheep industry, earlier I mentioned the trade issue. The trade issue question was this: can free trade policies destroy an American livestock industry? Well, let's look at the facts. During the 80s and early 90s, American lamb production followed American lamb consumption, rising when consumption increased and falling when consumption decreased. Imports of lamb represented about 13% of domestic lamb consumption during this period. Then, beginning in the mid-90s, when everyone in Washington was calling for free trade, domestic lamb consumption remained relatively constant, while domestic lamb production fell at an alarming rate. What was happening was that imports of primarily Australian lamb were displacing America's lamb production, and by the early 2000s, imports accounted for about 48% of all the lamb consumed in America. Then in 2006, our sister U.S. sheep industry earned the distinction of being the first livestock sector in America to be outsourced to foreign lambs. In 2006, consumers relied more on foreign lamb because the commercial U.S. sheep industry had been effectively destroyed by cheaper, undifferentiated imports of lamb. We've eliminated millions of sheep in America. Lamb production has fallen drastically while imports have skyrocketed. And now our beleaguered sheep industry faces the prospects of losing a major marketing outlet. And did I mention the sheep industry is the cattle industry's canary in the coal mine? Well, the canary has fallen from its perch and it's lying at the bottom of the cage. What are we going to do about it? When our government won't act to preserve a vital U.S. food industry, and our government has failed and refused to act for well over a decade, what do? Do you throw your hands in the air and surrender your industry to multinational corporations, or do you take actions to do for yourselves what your government won't do? At RCAF USA, we refuse to give up. We know the way our industry can make needed reforms is for the industry participants to organize. Once they organize, they will have the strength to formulate a solution and then cause Congress to support that solution. Or alternatively, they can use the judicial system to enforce the laws that federal regulators have refused to enforce. That's how RCAF USA is fighting to rebuild our broken cattle and sheep markets. But we can't do it without you. While we're 5,800 members strong, that's not strong enough to effectively cause change. We need more members to have sufficient political strength to effect real change. And as you already know, you are the key. We urge you to join RCAF USA and support our efforts to preserve your opportunities, your liberty, and your freedom to continue operating your farms and ranches as independent operators. Please go to www.r-calfusa.com to join with us. Thank you and goodbye.